What up, YouTube? Today I'm gonna watch a video with y'all called Why Work Was Invented, The Hidden History of Labor. I think this is good. I haven't watched it yet, so I'll be reacting to it at the same time as y'all. Let's get into it.
At some point this week, you will sit down at a desk or stand at a station or drive a car, and you will give the next 8 hours of your life to someone else. You will do this tomorrow and the day after. And for roughly 90,000 hours of your total existence on this earth, almost one third of your
Damn.
entire life, gone. And here's what almost no one stops to ask: who decided 8 hours a day was the right amount?
Shit,
It's
I'm
not
working
nature,
10.
not biology, not the neutral logic of economic necessity. Someone decided it, and they decided it long before you were born. In a church, in a factory, and in the offices of people who understood something you were never supposed to figure out. Arrested population is a dangerous one. This is not a
Yep.
video about productivity. This is a video about how work was invented, who built it, why they built it, and what they were afraid would happen if they didn't. Before the factory, before the clock, before the Monday morning alarm, human beings worked very differently from the way we work today. Medieval peasants typically worked between 120 and 150 days a year. This gave them more days of rest, celebration, and communal life that
That's crazy, bro. Like they're literally working 120 to 150 days of the year. So they have more days off than they work.
were protected by the church calendar. Pre industrial communities worked in seasonal bursts, shaped by harvests and weather and the rhythm of the land, followed by long stretches of genuine rest. The idea that human beings have always worked this hard, that ceaseless, year round, disciplined daily labor is the natural condition of our species, is not history. It is one of the most successful pieces of propaganda ever produced. And it was
Yep.
built in three stages by three successive institutions across 5 centuries. Each one added a layer the previous one could not provide alone. Together, they constructed something invisible and total, a population that polices its own exhaustion and calls it virtue. Let's take it apart. Imagine you need an entire population to work harder
Exactly.
than they have ever worked before, voluntarily, without chains, without a soldier at every door. How do you do it? You do not threaten their body. You threaten something they cannot see, cannot verify, cannot escape, yet they strongly believe exists. You threaten their soul. In the early 16th century, a theologian named John Calvin built exactly this machine. His instrument was a doctrine called predestination, the idea that God had already decided before your birth who was saved and who was damned. Nothing you did could move you from one column to the other. No confession, no penance, no deathbed prayer. For an intensely
I mean, I've always felt like religion is just a method to control the masses. I mean, it's definitely always been one of the many ways that we're all indoctrinated and brainwashed.
religious population, this was psychological catastrophe, and Calvin knew it, so he offered them one narrow exit. You cannot earn salvation, but you can look for signs of it. And the most visible sign that God had favored you was worldly success, discipline, industry, the refusal to be idle. In a single move, rest became sin, idleness became damnation, and relentless, grinding, joyless work became the only evidence available to a human being that their soul was not already condemned. It did not matter whether the theology was true. What mattered was that it worked, and it did, perfectly, at scale, across generations. Max Weber,
I
writing in The
never thought
Protestant
about it like
Ethic and the
that.
Spirit of Capitalism in 1905, identified this as the precise moment the modern work ethic was born. Not from economic necessity, not from rational self interest, from engineered psychological terror dressed in the language of God. People did not work harder because they needed to. They worked harder because they were terrified of what it meant about their eternal soul if they stopped. Weber's deeper insight: capitalism did not create the Protestant.
Dude, that's crazy. I never thought about that. Like, I always felt like a lot of, a large part of religion is to explain what science could not back in the day. Like for example, like the Greeks or whatever believed, or no, it was the pagans believed that Thor would like hit his hammer. No, it was Zeus that would create the thunder and lightning. But I never thought about how it definitely motivates people, right, to get married, to work. I don't know, that just never occurred to me.
Work ethic. The Protestant work ethic created capitalism. The moral cage was built first. The economic system simply moved in and made itself at home. By the time the Industrial Revolution arrived 2 centuries later, an entire civilization had already been convinced that to rest was to sin. The The factory owners did not need to persuade anyone of anything. The church had already done it for them.
Wow.
Calvinist theology gave work its moral authority. But theology alone cannot extract 12 hours of daily labor from an entire population. For that, a new instrument was needed, not a machine of production, a machine of measurement. E.P. Thompson, writing in his landmark 1967 essay, Time, Work Discipline, and Industrial Capitalism, made a discovery that reframes everything we think we know about the history of labor. Before the Industrial Revolution, time itself was experienced differently. Pre-industrial workers did not think in hours. They thought in tasks. You worked until the field was plowed, until the bread was baked, until the net was mended. When the task was done, you stopped.
Bro, honestly, I wish a lot of jobs did it like that. And honestly, it would improve productivity so much because so many people, like, dude, let's face it, the jobs pretend to pay us and the workers pretend to work. Like, it would improve so much productivity if companies and jobs paid based on the job, like what you actually do. I know there is some, but you know what I mean.
Rest was not laziness. It was the natural completion of work. The two were inseparable. The factory destroyed this entirely. A factory owner needed bodies present for fixed, measurable, purchased periods, regardless of whether any particular task had been completed. The logic of the factory was not the logic of the field. It was the logic of the clock. And so the clock was imposed. Church bells were replaced by factory whistles. The rhythm of seasons, day and night, was replaced by the tyranny of the shift. Time, which had always been fluid, communal, and task-shaped, was suddenly a commodity, something that could be measured and purchased. Thompson's argument is precise. The clock did not measure work. It manufactured it. It took human time and converted it into units that could be owned by someone else the moment you sold your labor. But the factory owners understood something else.
Bro, that's the wild thing too. I always think about that. Like when you go to buy stuff, like depending on how much you make an hour, you're literally just trading hours of your life for whatever you're buying. Like a lot of people, I feel like don't actually really equate or realize like they're essentially trading hours of their life when they buy things.
You cannot install a clock in an adult who has spent their entire life working by task and season. The resistance would be immediate and total. So they went earlier. The first mass public schools in industrial England were not designed to educate children. They were designed to train them, to sit still, to follow instructions, to begin when the bell rang and stop when the bell rang.
Bro, that's all school has ever been. Who can memorize the best? Who can sit down and sit still and you know, it's just all indoctrinated. Like, dude, basically like most majority of public schools are just basically like factory worker simulators. I'm telling you, like,
The clock was installed in the human nervous system before the child was old enough to question it. By the time they entered the factory, the discipline of measured time felt natural, because it had always been there.
yeah,
Weber gave work its soul. Thompson's factory owners gave it its skeleton. Together, they built a human being who not only accepted the structure of industrial labor, but could no longer imagine life without it.
yeah.
In 1932, at the height of the Great Depression, the philosopher and mathematician Bertrand Russell sat down and wrote an essay that should have changed everything. It was called In Praise of Idleness, and it opened with a confession that still reads like a provocation. I think that there is far too much work done in the world, and that immense
This is a
harm is
great
caused
video.
by the belief that work is virtuous. Russell's argument was not philosophical abstraction, it was mathematics. By 1932, advances in technology and industrial productivity meant that the basic necessities of civilized life, food, shelter, clothing, infrastructure, could be produced by the entire working population in 4 hours a day. The other 4 hours produced either luxuries for those who already had everything, or kept workers too busy and too tired to develop the one thing the ruling class feared most: political consciousness. Russell
Bro, exactly. Like they just have us working overworked, especially with inflation. They got us overworked. They got us glued to our phones, TikTok, Netflix, cheap dopamine fixes, just constant distraction. And and just that's all the NFL is, that's all the NBA is, all the sports, all NASCAR, everything is just one big distraction, dude. I'm telling you, like it sounds crazy, but they definitely like intentionally distract us.
observed what Weber and Thompson had each glimpsed from their own angle. The ruling class had always understood that leisure is dangerous. A rested human being reads, thinks,
Yep.
organizes, asks questions about the
Yep.
architecture of the society they live in. An exhausted
And the best part is nowadays people will call you crazy if you think in a bigger picture. Like people don't even want to hear this shit anymore. Like most people, they just want to keep going on in their lives. And if you start getting into any of this, they just it goes through one ear and out the other, or they just don't care. I mean, or they just, think you're weird.
One goes home, eats and sleeps, and returns the next morning without having looked up once. The perpetuation of unnecessary work,
There's also
Russell
people
argued,
that agree.
was not an accident of economics. It was a deliberate political strategy dressed in the language of virtue. And the most devastating part of the strategy was that the workers themselves had been convinced to enforce it on each other, on their children, on anyone who dared to rest.
Bro, yeah, it's just like all the people that defend capitalism and defend um the wages not increasing. Like there's so many people that just still defend the system that is not working or is not good. Like it's wild.
Calvin had planted the seed. The factory had watered it. And by 1932, the harvest was complete. An entire civilization that equated exhaustion with dignity, rest with shame, and the consumption of a human life by labor.
Bro, that's almost like he's literally just saying what life is now. You can't even like even me like on the weekends when I'm not doing something like I feel like this anxiousness like this guilt almost like that I'm not doing anything like we're so programmed to be constantly productive it, it's just it's messed up.
With the highest moral calling available to an ordinary person. Russell's conclusion was simple and has never been answered. If 4 hours of daily work is sufficient to maintain civilization, and we are working 8, who is keeping the other 4 hours? And why have we agreed to let them? That question was asked in 1932. Since then, we have built computers, algorithms, and machines capable of performing the cognitive and physical labor that once required entire workforces. If 4 hours was enough in 1932, before semiconductors, before software, before artificial intelligence, the honest calculation today points to something closer to 2 hours. The technology evolved. The 8-hour cage did not, which means the cage was never about the work. Calvin made you afraid to rest. Thompson's factory owners stole the clock and installed it in your nervous system before you were old enough to object. Russell proved, nearly a century ago, with simple arithmetic, that the amount of work demanded of you was never about what civilization needed. It was about what power needed from you. The theological trap, the industrial machine, and the political strategy each arrived at the same destination by a different road. A human being who feels guilty for doing nothing, who measures their own worth in hours of productivity, and who returns to work every Monday morning not because they must, but because they have forgotten that the choice.
And y'all can't tell me that's how you feel. Like y'all can't tell me that's how you feel all the time now. Like you can't even relax without feeling guilty 99% of the time for most people. They've it's just crazy the amount of programming that they've done to us. Like I said, it's definitely the top versus the bottom, man. And I feel like nowadays, they're taking advantage of us so much, dude. It's crazy that people don't see it, or that we're not doing more about it.
Choice was ever theirs to make. 90,000 hours, 1/3 of your life. The question Russell asked in 1932 has never been answered. It has only been buried under more work, more guilt, and the same quiet insistence that this is simply how things are. It isn't. It never was. Now you know who built it.
That's the crazy thing too, is like life has just been like this for like 100 years, dude. Like, and people still like, I don't know. What's it gonna take to change? Like this is not right. Like people nowadays are working 50, 60 hours like on average. I don't know, man. If y'all like this video, I'm gonna leave the link in the description. And yeah, hope y'all enjoyed it. And I hope y'all have a blessed day. Please like and subscribe. Adios.